Okay, fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everyone. For this, our last episode of the June series of Saxonburg webinars. And as always, we're in for a very interesting afternoon. Joining me today is Johan Conradie. He's the Managing Director of Vinventions South Africa. So today will be all about closures. So just before we get started, just the normal housekeeping. Everyone's microphones will be muted. So if you want to ask a question, and we do encourage questions, please just type it in the comments and we'll get to them throughout the webinar. If you want any details about purchasing Saxonburg wines, we will post. I see Chantal has already posted details on the comments as well, and we will post the details again after the webinar. So please do follow us also on social media and stay up to date with what's happening on Saxonburg. Well, great, Johan, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on what was supposed to be a very rainy and wet day, and I'm still waiting for the rain to arrive. But be that as it may, welcome. And yeah, firstly, tell us a little bit about Vinventions, what the company is about, and all the products you supply to the wine industry.
Okay, also from my side, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this webinar this afternoon, and good afternoon to everybody that is on site with us. Yes, Vinventions is an international closure company who supply natural corks, screw caps, synthetic corks, and also the new plant cork. We have 7 factories worldwide, around 600 employees, and we supply a little bit more than 2.8 billion closures to 8,000 wineries in 50 countries. Yeah, the company was established in 2013 by a guy called Mr. Mark Norrell. He was the previous owner of Norma Cork, which in the old days was producing only plastic or synthetic closures. And his vision and idea was to be like a one-stop sale for winemakers, but also what he wants to do different, and what we are doing currently different is we don't only supply the closure to the company. We have a special division called WQS, Wine Quality Solutions, where we basically attend the bottlings. We take care of the oxygen management before and during bottling. So his whole vision was to be really professional, first of all, and to supply to the wine industry the needs of all closers, what they want to use. So in short, that is basically Vinventions.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's impressive in a relatively short amount of time that a lot of closures to be putting a lot of wines going under your closures. So that's really exciting. And yeah. I mean, on closures, getting into closures, I think, you know, cork has always been the #1 go-to closure, and I think in the last few years there's been a massive shift, especially on the lower end, but also in a lot of new world countries like Australia and New Zealand, to more screw caps and alternatives to cork. But I think let's first chat about cork, because it is, I mean, and I think cork will always, especially at the super premium end of the wine industry, will always be an important closure. So where do you actually source your cork from? And tell us a little bit about the production process going into making a cork.
Okay, yes, you are right. Some countries' first choice to inner sealing is still natural corks. Of course, with also a lot of advantages and also a lot of negative points, but we can discuss that quite later. Currently, worldwide, there's around 2.2 million hectares of cork forest worldwide. They produce every year about 200,000 tons of raw bark material. The majority of natural corks is coming from Portugal. That will be around almost 50% of the world's natural corks are coming from Portugal. Then second will be Spain, about 37%. And the little part that is left will come from smaller areas like a Sardinian cork, Italian cork, or North Africa, Morocco. I think what is important to know, the biggest difference between the Spanish, Portuguese, or more to the smaller part than with the Spanish and Portuguese cork is the growing process is much slower than than in Spain and in Portugal. So what that means is your earrings will be quite closer to one another in the cork. So your visuality of the cork will be more beautiful. It will be a better looking cork visual, but the elasticity will not be so good. And also to take out TCA is also not that easy. So cork, they harvest cork basically between June and August every year. It is the government control the cork forest. It takes approximately 25 years to 30 years to harvest a tree for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and then that cork you cannot use for wine corks. They call it virgin cork. That type of bark they use for floor tiles and isolation and all that type of stuff. So then after every 8 to 9 years, they will harvest the tree. They don't cut off the whole tree like a lot of people believe or think. They harvest only the best part of the bark, and normally that is the middle part of the tree. They will harvest, and as I said, that is controlled by government. So then they will take the raw bark with trucks to the certain suppliers, and then they will start there. They analyze the TCA, what is the limit, and then it's raw bark. Then it depends from supplier to supplier, but average 3 years, the cork will lie outside to get as much as rain as possible, to get out all the negative tannins and stuff. Then they will do a quality check on the bark, the quality of the bark, and the people must remember the price of a cork and the bark is all about the visual. The better looking cork bark with not a lot of holes and stuff will be always much more expensive. And why? They will use that bark for a top end cork. So that is why your top end cork is so expensive, because the raw material for that type of cork is not easy to find. So of course there's a lot of mafia business. The guy that pays the best, he will get the best raw material. So after normally 3 years, if you can, you need to leave the raw cork outside. And after that, they will start the inspections and to start to plunge the cork out. I can show you, I don't know if you can see here. This is a bark of a tree. And then they start to plunge the corks. You see the hole there? And they plunge the corks basically with a machine like this. So this is a raw cork without any cleaning or whatsoever. And you can see this is the visual is quite good. So this will be like a floor or a nut, a quite expensive cork. So in short, that is how they produce the corks, and they send it to us by bags of 5,000. Dirk, you must tell me if I go too fast, and if you need some other questions.
100%.
So yeah, in short, that is how they produce the cork, or how they start to producing the corks, and Portugal and Spain is your main countries concerned.
Okay, and it's interesting that you say that the cork also, that the bark needs to spend about 3 years outside. So it's very similar to the seasoning process of oak staves before you can make a barrel. It's very similar to cork, and there's also quite a long time investment, because you have to plant the tree. It takes about 30 years, as you said, to get the first crop, and you can't use that. So only at about year 40, you get your first usable bark for corks, and then you have to keep that outside for another 3 years. So it's quite time consuming to get to the product. And then of course, cork is, as you showed now, it's a 100% natural product. There's nothing added to it. There's nothing taken away, really. But with all natural products, there are always risks involved. There are certain things that are out of our control, and probably the biggest risk with natural cork is TCA, or cork taint. And a reason for I think the large growth that we've seen in alternative closures like screw caps or the normal cork and all of that. Tell us a little bit about TCA, and what exactly is it, and how do we try and prevent it, and what measures do you, as a cork supplier, do you have in place to try and limit the risks?
Yes, that word is in our industry not a good word to use. So we try to use it not as much as possible. But yeah, that is from a cork producer side. It's really important, of course, to control TCA and to take care of TCA, but it's not easy at all. Let's start. What is TCA? TCA is a type of fungus that is in the cork bark. It's called trichloronational. So the fungus in the cork, if you plant the cork out, then they start to wash, normally with peroxide process, to try to get away the TCA. What is the compounds of TCA, and how do you pick up TCA? Normally, if you open a bottle of wine and the characteristics of TCA, you will smell like almost like a wet newspaper or a wet dog. It's just moldy. It's not nice. It's really not nice. So every supplier has their own type of method how they can control, or how they want to control TCA, and how they try to get rid of TCA. So my supplier is Vigas in Spain. It's a really small family business who started already in 1873. They started the business. So we have a type of steaming process from the beginning, where we receive the raw material. It goes in the steaming room. It's only clean water with steam, and we do free treatments of 3 hours on each bale. Then after that, they will control the TCA again, and then after plunging of the corks, that will go into free washing process. First, it will be like normal hot warm water. The second process will be with peroxide. The third process will be with it's a sun clear. It's a ascorbic and citric acid, which you use also in wine. Why do we use that? Because it is a really soft treatment, so you don't damage the structure and the cells of the cork. And after that, we will go again through the steaming process. Of course, then there's a lot of other TCA analysis that they are doing in the laboratoriums and in the labs with special people. That is really, they are focused only on TCA. Yeah. Then we have also a special cork, which we do sensorial, one by one. It's really for top wines. But Dirk, and I'm a cork supplier, and even with that system, you are not 100% bulletproof. And that is unfortunately, I don't think you will ever get rid of TCA. That is my personal opinion. We are really trying. I did one trial. What I did is we sent a container through to South Africa, and I put small bags of bentonite in the container. And what does TCA want? He wants humidity that goes up and down, and you never know where your container is on the vessel. So yeah. I put some bentonite bags in the container, and after we receive the container, I take it immediately out and I take it to Hande at Vinlab, and we analyze the bentonite, and it was crazy stuff. The results that you find with TCA. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So there's so many factors that you need to take care of TCA. Even where the winemaker stores the corks, if they are not used, that is also really important. So what normally, if you bottle a wine with natural corks, it takes around 3 months. If there's TCA in the cork, it will take 3 months, and you will have it in the wine. Yeah, you will have it in the wine. So the majority of times it is absorbed from the cork, but also it's important that people know that sometimes it's from outside that goes through the cork. And that we have also some examples of that. So it's not only, I will say the majority of times, yes, it's from the cork. But sometimes it can be factors from outside the cork as well that can contaminate wine.
Yeah, that's interesting. A few comments on what you said. I think that people should look up for the videos of the people that are the cork sniffers, that literally it's their day job going in to the warehouse or to the factory and literally just sniffing corks the entire day. I can't imagine doing that for a whole work day. And then on that, saying that TCA can also be from outside. I've heard a lot of people where they've had wine that they opened the bottle of wine, the wine was fine the first glass, but as people normally do, you take the cork off, you turn it around and you push it back into the bottle. And then there was TCA on the outside of the cork.
Yes.
And then the wine was spoiled when they drink it, when they poured the second glass 15 or 20 minutes later. So I think that's also important to note for people, is actually never to turn around your cork when you take the cork out, but to push it back the same way as you pulled it out, just because that is another risk factor when drinking wine. So we've got a few questions already. The first one is, do corks impart any flavors onto the wines like you get from barrels?
No, not every. You will find, sometimes you will find a taste or a smell in wine which can be related to reductiveness or oxidation or something like that. But yes, there can be a little bit of off flavors, and that is why the sensorial of piece by piece is also important, because you will get more bottle consistency with that on that way. But really to directly influence wine in a different taste, no, not really.
Yeah, I don't think the flavor compounds are enough really to have such a pronounced influence, except of course if there is any off flavors in the cork, then that can unfortunately spoil the wine as well. People also forget that it's not always just TCA that can spoil the wine from a cork. There are also other off flavors that can spoil the wine.
To come back to that point, sorry, Dirk. We had a scenario or an incident a few years ago where the client ordered, say for example, 20,000 pieces of cork, and he bottled 2 cultivars with the same batch of corks, and only on the one batch of wine there was consistently cork problems. And at the end of the day, we realized that when the bottling guy shifted to another cultivar, he changed the filter seats. And the filter seats was contaminated. And everybody was again blaming the cork because it's your last part of bottling process. At the end of the day, it was the filter seats. It was 2 old filter seats. The expiry date was already over, and it was contaminated through the filter seats.
That's incredible. Yeah, it just shows you one has to be so careful throughout the winemaking process, because at the very last moment, you could do everything right for years, and at the very last moment when you put that wine into a bottle, you can ruin it all. Yeah. Then we've got another question. If a consumer gets a bottle of wine and it is corked, what is the best procedure to let the wine estate know? I think I'll answer that one. Well, I think it's just go onto their website, get their contact details, and phone them up and say, listen, I've got this bottle of wine, it is corked. Do not, however, give us a call when you've already consumed 90% of your bottle and there's one drop left and you say that is corked. Then it becomes a little bit suspicious from our side. And of course, if you can send us the bottle with the cork, with its own cork and not a different cork in as well, that just helps us, because then obviously we can contact our suppliers, we can have the corks analyzed, and we can get to the bottom of it from there, which is always helpful. So do let us know if you ever find a bottle of wine that does have cork tank. Then another question from Conrad: how much does the winemaker pay for corks, from the cheaper corks to the more expensive corks?
My cheapest cork is around R3.20 per closure, and then I have some closures or some corks that is R25 a cork.
Oh wow!
So a lot of people, if they walk into a wine shop and they will see a bottle of R400 or 500 or 600 rand, that is why the wine is not. It's not only because the wine is really good, but if you will immediately see the packaging, the bottle will be different. It will be a heavyweight bottle, maybe an imported bottle, not local produced, and of course the cork will be a nice 49 by 25. And also on that note, to give the guests some idea, the moment you move away, the normal size of a cork is 44 or a 49 millimeter by 24 millimeters. Yeah. The moment you move from, the moment you move from a 24 to a 25, it's almost R1.10 difference on a closure. So it's really expensive, and And unfortunately for us in the wine industry and the people that enjoy and drink wine, if you buy wine with a natural cork, you will always have the danger, if I can call it like that, that the bottle can be off, it can be corked. But lucky for us, there's some other closures on the market already for that, but that's something else.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Then another question, does the winery also have to go through a prep process with the cork? So is there any, responsibility on our side to get the corks prepared, or do you deliver them to me as, ready for bottling?
No, we deliver ready for bottling, but if we, for example, deliver the expensive corks like the sniff corks piece by piece, we call it selection closures, then we want the winemaker at least to also taste his wine for TCA before bottling. Because if I must go through the process and it's not cheap, then at least he also needs to come to the party to analyze and taste his wine if the wine is fine. But no, if we deliver, the corks is coming in bags with SO2 that protects them, and you can keep it easily in a very, if your storage conditions is good, you can keep it for 6 months to 1 year.
Yeah. Then another question from Michael. What preventative measures can be used if TCA is discovered during the later or final stages of the production process of corks? So, the cork is basically made and now you find TCA on it. What do you do?
What we normally do is there's for example, I've mentioned when we receive the raw bark. Now, our cutoff point on TCA is 2 nanograms a liter or 1.8 nanograms a liter. That's the way you measure TCA in the raw bark. In the final product, we want it close to 1 or below 1. So if the final product suddenly shows corks of 1.8 or 2.2, they will reject that batch. And what they do with that, they will grind it to make it small micro parts, and they will go through another TCA process, and they will use that in an aglo cork or maybe floor tiles or something like that. But they will not send corks out that is not. And also something that I forgot to mention, if we receive the incoming batch of closures, we are not allowed to sell the closures into the industry unless we send it again for testing. So our values must be below 1.5 nanograms. If it's above 1.5 nanogram, I don't like I don't want to sell it to the wineries. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes I will receive, say, 100,000 pieces, and there's 5,000 pieces in one bag. And maybe 2 bags will show 1.8. Then I will maybe send it for another test. And if it's again 1.8, we will not sell it. Sorry. So, but we try. But the thing about TCA is you can analyze now the 1 bag and you will get a value of 1 nanogram. And you will send the same bag, another batch to be analyzed, and you will get a different value.
Yeah, it is, because it's basically a spot check that you do, because you're not testing every single cork. So you're taking 10 corks out of a bag or whatever it may be. So there is always going to be variability. And it's, like I said, it's a natural product. So there is always going to be natural variability from cork to cork. Then one more question. When the wine is bottled, how long does it take before the foil around the cork top and neck is added? Does the foil protect the cork enough from acquiring outside contaminants? So I'll answer the first part. Well, that really depends on the winery and depends on the wine. Sometimes, well, most wineries like to especially on the higher end wines, like to store their wines, mature their wines for at least 6 months or so in bottle before it goes to market. So generally it would be stored without any foil, and then only after, when the wine is labeled, you'll then add the tin capsule or the polylamide capsule to it. Does the capsule offer any protection to the cork?
In a certain way, yes, but it is not the reason and the value of the capsule. They put the capsule on to give the finer touch. But I think what is important for the listener, or for Michael to know, is that it's really important to, if you bottle and some people, because they don't have space, they will bottle, they will label, and they will put the capsule on in the same trend. But then it's really important that the cork on top will not be wet. Because, for example, if you bottle in the rain, And the forklift driver takes the crate of corks to the warehouse, and it's wet on top of the cork. It can be that it will be moldy. After 2 to 3 months, there can be mold on. There's nothing wrong then with the wine, but then you need to take alcohol spirits or something like that, and you need to clean each bottle on top. But they need to take care, because that is the only danger or problem that can happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. Then another cork question from Melinda. Are MCC or champagne corks more expensive than a normal cork?
No. The most expensive champagne cork we have is around almost 4 rand. But to give you an idea, for example, everybody knows Pongras. Pongras from the Stel. The cork that goes into a Pongras of the Stel is around 2.60 rand. So it's still cheaper than my cheapest natural cork. So no, it's not. And you have the 2 discs at the bottom of champagne corks, and then you have the granites on top. And the bigger the granites, the more cheaper the cork. The finer the granite, the more expensive the cork.
Yeah, I think that's important to note for people that whereas a natural cork is a single punch of the cork bar, MCC or champagne corks are basically the leftover cork that is grounded up into granules, and those granules are then put together, and that's why it's cheaper, because it doesn't have to be you don't have to find this perfect piece in the bark where you can punch this massive cork out of. So that's why even if the cork is bigger, it is cheaper.
Yeah, it basically goes through extrusion process where it's 15% glue, food grade glue, and it looks really rough. And afterwards, they will start to almost with like sandpaper. They will start to shape it and make it beautiful. But it's definitely cheaper. Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. We've touched on TCA and all the problems associated with natural cork. So that has obviously led to a lot of alternatives being developed and a lot of technological advances on the alternative side, closure side. So one of these alternatives that are quite revolutionary is the one that you bring in, which is the plant-based Norma cork. So give us a little, what exactly is it and how is it produced?
Yes, that is quite magnificent. What we do is in 2010, Mr. Martin Rell, he already started to see the green picture and the sustainability picture. So he was looking for a closure, of course, with no TCA, with no glue, and that has no effect basically on the wine. So after a lot of research and a lot of planning and a lot of trials, we start in 2013 to produce a select green. We call it the plant cork, the green line. And can you believe it? It's from sugarcane. The base of the cork is from sugarcane. So what basically I will try to explain short. The production process is 4 major steps. There's small steps in between, but the 4 major steps is, first, the sugarcane is coming from Brazil, where we control it. So we control the sugarcane fields. So they harvest the sugarcane. Then from harvesting the sugarcane, it goes to through a process with bioethylene, and then from bioethylene it goes to biopolystyrene, and from biopolystyrene it goes, after that it will be a closure. So it's not easy to explain to you the whole process, because it's very, very technical and very significant. But yeah, so we have now a closure called Select Green that is made from sugarcane. And I think what is also interested for them to know, 1 hectare of land of sugarcane produce 83 tons of bioethanol, and this gives you 7,000 liters biopolymerol, and this gives you 3,000 kilogram of biopolystyrene, and all that gives you 1 million Select Green closures. So the whole process is green. It is the first 0 carbon footprint closure. Of course, there's no glue, there's no TCA, there's no off flavors. So basically, it's a bulletproof product. And beginning of or end of 2008, by decanter, it was the fast growing closer in the world at that stage. And even last year we installed 4 new production lines, 2 in Belgium and 2 in Zebulon in the US, where the other factories are. So yeah, it's a really good alternative, and because of the sustainability factor that everybody is behind, and the green, it is really a good product to use.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's quite impressive. Do you think you can produce 1 million corks off of 1 hectare of sugarcane? That's phenomenal. That's very impressive. And I think the big thing with a cork like that is, maybe do you have one of those corks with you, just to show everyone that it's very similar to what a natural cork looks like?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this one. This is one from Babylon Storen.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have here one from Lamotte.
I've got, because as you know, well, you of course know, Johan, we've also, so Saxonburg has moved over to close some of our wines, especially, well, all of our whites that goes under cork has now moved to select green. So I'll just show you a bit of a comparison as well. And this one is the natural cork, and then this one is the Noma cork. So very similar, they look very similar, and obviously there are lots of benefits to using the green cork, as we call it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you, and also with the green line, which I didn't mention, you can control the OTR. The OTR stands for oxygen transfer rate. So the Select Green, for example, you have 3 grades. The Select Green 100, it relieves 1.1 milligram of oxygen in the first 12 months, and after that it picked up by 3. So from 1.1 it goes to 1.4. The Select Green 300, for example, is 1.7 on the first 12 months, and after that by 0.3 to 2. So if you have, for example, if you have a really strong red wine, but you want to release the red wine in the next 3 months, but it must be sold out in 1 year, you will, to have a reduction in the tannins and to make it a little bit softer, more elegant, you will use the Select Green 300. Where the Reserva, the top one, is almost like a screw cap. The first year is 0.6 milligrams, and then after that 0.9 milligrams. So that is also a big advantage above natural corks. Natural corks, you have a lot of inconsistent bottling. I mean, you will open a bottle of Chenin Blanc, for example, which was not bottled with a screw cap, and you will open another one, and maybe one of the 2 of the 3 bottles tastes completely different. It's not because of the cork, but it's because of the inconsistent bottling, because it's a natural product. And of course, during these days, if you look at the price per unit, per closer, it's much cheaper. It's really cheaper, and you have never off bottle of wine, so there's no spoilage. And if you are a wine drinker, what do you want? You, or even a winemaker, you want the wine in the bottle as close as it was in the barrels when you tasted before bottling. And this is what this product brings to the market. If the people are interested, you can go on the Vinventions website, and there's a small part that says testimonials, and they can click on that afterwards. And there's a lot of testimonials from France, from Argentina, from Italy, of winemakers that is really they love the product. And even for myself, from a supplier point of view, it is really great to give a winemaker a product where he can save money and where he never has a faulty wine. I mean, Dirk, you know, if you go to a tasting and you know you will use 2 bottles of wine, you normally take 5 bottles because maybe there's some that is corked. But with this product, you take only the bottles you need, and you can be sure you will not have a bottle that is off. Yeah,
I think that guarantee is definitely something well, I think that's why a lot of winemakers are moving over to alternatives, and it's not only normal cork. You also have alternatives like Diam or the conglomerate corks, and a lot of people are moving towards that because of that inconsistency that natural cork has. I think natural cork, when it's fantastic, when, then it's brilliant and it's really a superb closure, but there is that inconsistency that you can't control it. And I think as a winemaker, you try your best to make the best wine you can, and it's heartbreaking to spoil it right at the end, and not for the lack of effort, just because there is this uncontrollable. That being said, I think natural cork will always have a place, but obviously with a lot of control measures in place to try and limit that risk as much as possible. But maybe just you touch on the oxygen uptake with this Noma cork and the different how you can control the amount of oxygen that comes into the wine. Just as a comparative, I know screw caps, obviously the tin liner screw caps is 0 oxygen uptake, so that's completely reductive. But yes, there are definitely ranges with natural cork, and it's not, no cork is the same. But in what range more or less are we talking about with natural cork?
To be honest, nobody really knows, but what we suspected is between 1 and 1.2. Some say 0.9 to 1.2, maybe it doesn't make a big difference, but it's definitely around there. If we did trials where we bottled 50 bottles with a natural corks, 50 bottles with a type of Diam technical closer, and then 50 bottles of Select Green, and then we tasted the wine after 6 months, after 9 months, after 1 year. And we did trials on that, and if you look at the results, on a technical basis on that, considering the OTR, it's between say 0.9 and 1.2.
Okay.
But as I said, I mean, that is the thing. I think what the public and the people must realize, what we discussed earlier today. If you are a winemaker and there will always be a place for natural corks. Believe me, there will always be a place, but you need to know that you will have a risk. I paid for a Colomé Sauvignon Blanc in Bordeaux, €65 a bottle. And the one guy that was with me, he said to me, listen, Johan, but it's with natural cork. Maybe you must buy 2. And I bought 2. And the first bottle in South Africa I opened, at €65 a bottle, it was cork.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough.
And like my wife said, you can't get mad because you also sell natural corks. But it's not nice. It's not nice to open a bottle of €65 and it's spoiled by a closer that you also supply. But it happened. There's nothing you can do about it.
I think just to touch on another thing that sometimes make natural cork quite difficult is there's differences in the elasticity. Obviously, the better corks and the better supplies, there's very little differences in the elasticity, but there is some differences in the elasticity from one cork to another, and that, while bottling, it can make it quite difficult and can actually change the amount of oxygen that is taken up during bottling as well, because some corks are plunged in deeper, some are not so deep, just because of that elasticity difference. So there is a lot of variables with natural cork. And
I think what is also important for the listeners to realize why we are talking about the importance of the oxygen is because it all depends on your shelf life. If your oxygen is not right in your headspace, you will have a much shorter shelf life. So if you don't control the oxygen while bottling, and also in the dissolved oxygen in the tank before bottling, this can play a bigger role in the shelf life. Maybe the wine that you will taste in 6 months' time will not be the same wine you taste in 2 years. And that is also a technical point why it's so important if you start bottling, not to stop start the bottling line. Because your first 12 bottles will always be, and your last 12 bottles will always taste a little bit different than the rest. So it's really not good to stop the bottling line.
Yeah, there's once again, as with all of these technical discussions, everyone that has joined in every week, there are so many variables to consider as a winemaker and things to keep in mind. So it really is endless. Just a few more questions. One from Amanda is, how can I recycle old corks? So what would you suggest people do with all their old corks?
What they can do is they can keep it and put it in a flask or something, and then you contact the supplier. So, for example, what we are doing now is we are also busy with that. We are doing we call it the basket, and that is also from recyclable plant corks, and we put it to the tasting room. So every time the lady in the tasting room open a bottle, she put the closer in the basket. So if it's full, we go and collect it. We keep it in our company, and then we send it back. If we have quite a lot, we send it back in a partial container. And for example, this year when COVID started, and it was all about the face mask, they made face mask out of recyclable plant corks. So if the person can get a big vase or something, throw the corks there inside there, and or what you also can do is biodegradable. Put it in your ground, and afterwards it will start to evaporate.
Okay, that's fantastic. And then when does the printing? Andrea wants to know, when does the printing or branding go onto the corks?
What the process of production corks is, if we received an order, then immediately the printing goes onto the cork, and after it takes 24 hours for the printing to dry, and then we put it in a huge humidifier room, where the cutoff point must be 7% of humidity, and then the corks go for a treatment. For basically we use silicone, paraffin and silicone wax. One is for the extraction of the closure, and one is for the sealing of the closure. And then after that, it is basically 2 cycles. It works like a tumble dryer. There's 20 cycles, 20 minutes per cycle at 45 degrees. And after that, you need to leave the corks also for 24 hours. So it can sit, and then in our lab we do a bottling. We do a bottling test. We bottle 20 bottles. Again, it stands for 24 hours or 48 hours sometimes. And then we do an extraction test. And if the extraction, if the highest value and the lowest value of the extraction on 24 bottles is 7 nitro kilograms less, then we know the treatment is homogeneous on the closures.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it is quite a process. So it's not like I phone you up today and tell you, oh, Johan, I need to bottle tomorrow, so please drop off 10,000 corks.
No, and something I don't know where all the listeners are coming from, but they are really welcome to visit our factory in Wellington in the Western Cape. I mean, we are open for guests. We received a lot of guests, and it's really quite interesting to see what's happening behind. And you know what, Dirk, and you and me are the same. We open a bottle of wine and we throw away the cork. But if you look at the price of the cork and the amount of work that goes into a cork, it's quite crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something that people often neglect to notice, really. I obviously, personally, I always look at corks whenever I open a bottle of wine, because I always want to see what the other guys are using, and how the corks are looking, and all of that. Then just on a last question, this is a question that I get often, is obviously we all know, wine under natural cork, people have aged wines for 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes. But when it comes to these alternatives, like screw caps and the plant-based cork, can we mature those wines? Can we actually, will those wines keep? Will we be able, because the natural, the plant-based cork hasn't been around for 10 years. How will it age, or what do you expect?
Let's start with the natural cork. For sure, the natural cork can age for ages. It all depends on your storage conditions. If you store it at, say, 18 degrees and in a nice cool place, and you turn it around regularly on a consistent basis, it can really age well. Of course, you can. Again, the danger is you can age it for 10 years, and if you open it at a special occasion, it can be cooked. But leave it like that. But so yes, on the green line, the normal cork, our trials shows that the Select Green, the cheaper one, it can basically age for 15 years, and the Reserva can age for 20 years. But again, it all depends on the oxygen management before and during bottling, same with natural corks, and also where you store it. On screw caps, me personally, I haven't opened a bottle that was 5-6 years old with a screw cap, unless white wine. I had some great Sauvignon Blancs last year, which I think the one was, I think, a 2013 vintage, and Dirk, unbelievably, It's still really fresh. The acidity, the balance. It was still a great wine. And I think it's also important for the listeners to realize you will pick up cork taint much easier on a white wine than on a red wine or a port, because of the alcohol. If you have only a slighted cork taint, yes, and a wine with 15% alcohol, maybe you will not pick it up. Especially if it's a Cabernet, which is a really strong, good Cabernet, Cellarmaster Cabernet, maybe you will not pick it up. But with a white wine, and the thing about white wine, it changes so fast in the bottle. So I prefer screw cap on or on alternatives like the Select Green or even a Diam or even a technical closer. I prefer it on white wine, but mostly screw cap, and it's also convenient. I mean, if you open a bottle of a nice Sauvignon Blanc tonight and you want to have 2 glasses, you can drink it the next day again. But with cork, even you can put that cork completely into the bottle again. It will not be the same wine. So yes, on screw cap side, no, I can't really say how long it can age. Because the oxygen is not, there's not a lot of oxygen, and a wine needs to breathe a little bit. So, but as I said, I've tasted some great white wines that was 5, 6, 7 years already on the screw cap.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I've also tasted some spectacular, especially whites, closed under screw cap that were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old and still very, very fresh. I think it's also important to note, just to mention as a final thought almost, that as a winemaker, you have to take into consideration when you prepare your wine for bottling, what closure you're going to use. Because of the different oxygen uptake, there are different sulfur levels that you want to go at. You want to, with a wine that has a high sulfur level, you don't want a completely reductive, and a wine that, for instance, something like Syrah, that can be a little bit reductive. The variety tends to be a little bit reductive. If you bottle that with a high sulfur level under a screw cap, your risk to have that wine go completely reductive and bottle is very high. And that would be, that would be a disaster. So one has to be very careful, and you have to take into consideration the closure that you're going to use for a specific wine when you start preparing that wine for bottling. And I think that's also where there's no one size fits all when it comes to closures. It's really what works for the wines that you have, for the styles that you as a producer wants to produce, and that would give you a level of consistency in that style. And I think that's really important to note. There's not. I use at Saxonburg, we use screw caps, we use plant-based corks, and we use natural corks. And I think there's a place for all 3 of those, even just within our range. And so that is important to note as well. Yes, Johan.
And I think also what the people must realize, and maybe sometimes I don't think we do it enough, but sometimes the winemaker or the winery makes a really good wine, but the sales are too quick on that wine, so he can't skip a vintage or not be in the supermarket. So what will happen is he needs to label, and he needs to send the wine out. So sometimes the wine is a little bit too young. Now the guys, the public open the bottle of wine. Oh no, it's not a good wine. But guys, decant the wine.
Yeah.
Decant. I don't think our South African people do it enough, because we think, yeah, you are grand if you do it, you're smart if you do it. You are really smart if you do it, because you will taste a different wine. And I don't think we do it enough. So if somebody buys a nice, good Cabernet or a really spicy Syrah, and it's a 17 or a 18 vintage or a 19 vintage, guys, it's not a bad wine. Just leave it open for a little. Just let it breathe for a little, or decant it, and you will have a really beautiful and nice wine to drink.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Johan. That was, I think, very, very interesting. If anyone has any further questions, as always, you're more than welcome to contact us. We're willing to answer any questions, and I think do take Johan up after the COVID, after we've gotten through the worst of COVID. Maybe go out to their facility and go and have a look, behind the scenes of what actually goes into the corks and the closures that we put on our bottles. And then, as always, we have another winner today for our last one of this series. So the winner today is Annie Delport. congratulations. You will receive your Magnum of Saxonburg in the next few days. So do enjoy that. Please, everyone, if you want to purchase any of our wines, just be in contact with us, and we'll deliver the wines to you. You don't even have to come to the farm, which is, I think at this stage, we've all learned to be online more than we've ever been online. Certainly these webinars and Zoom meetings and things like that, we weren't used to that 3 or 4 months ago. And then just as a last sign off, so this is, like I've said, this is our last episode of this series. We'll be taking a few weeks break, but do keep your eyes glued to our social media feed. We've got a really exciting one coming up towards the end of July. I'm not going to share too much about that, but we've got some fantastic people that we're going to talk with actually during that webinar. So do keep your eyes peeled, and we'll share more details in the coming weeks. So thank you once again. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you, Johan, for all the incredible information you shared with us today. And yeah, have a fantastic day and keep safe.
Thank you, Dirk. Same to you guys. Cheers.
Thank you.